The Senate will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Bridges, Buckner, Coleman, Cook, Coram, Danielson,
Excused.
Donovan, Fenberg, Fields, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hanson, Heisey, Holbert, 93, Jaquez Lewis, Kirkmeyer, Kolker, Lee, Liston, Lundeen, Moreno, Pedersen,
Here.
Priola, Rankin, Rodriguez, Scott, Simpson, Smallwood, Sonnenberg,
Good morning.
Story,
Excused.
Winter, Woodward, Zenzinger. Mr. President,
Here. With 33 present, 0 absent, 2 excused, we have a quorum. Would the good senator from Arapahoe County please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Good morning, Mr. President and colleagues and those in the gallery. Please join me and stand as we cite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States Thank you.
Approval of the journal. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a member of the House, I often offered a poem. As a member of the Senate, it might be a tome. But a voice in my head said, don't end up dead. So in this House, I'll not be a louse and simply move that the reading of the journal of Friday, February 9th, 2022 be dispensed with and that the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
The good senator from El Paso County will be fined $1 and will be here all week for those ridiculous motions. You have heard the motions. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes, they have it, and that motion is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This weekend, we lost a giant. As pure of a human as they make. A true public servant. The news of Pat Teagarden was, I think for all of us, a punch in the gut. And there isn't anyone, I think, that didn't hear the news and wasn't completely devastated when they heard it. When I think of Pat, one word immediately comes to mind for me, and that's helper. He was, I think, for so many of us, for so many people that probably never met him, probably didn't even know he was helping them, he was their helper. He cared about others not because of how they could be used to advance his agenda or his interests, but he actually just cared about others. That's who Pat was. And I think we all know, for any of us who had side conversations with Pat, he didn't just care about us, he cared about our families, even if he had never met them. I was thinking this weekend, politics can be a pretty strange place to work in. It can be a self-serving little world that we live in. But every once in a while you run across someone who is actually just here for entirely the right reasons. And that was Pat. It was never about his ego or about him. It was never about power. It was about helping people. That's what he did every single day. I think there's not a soul that interacted with Pat Teagarden who didn't leave that interaction feeling better. He was a jokester. He always had a smile on his face, and he always cared and was wanting to help. The thing about Pat is the position he was in, I think, could have been, and the positions he's been in over the years, can be a thankless job. Especially more recently, he was interacting with people that I think were probably oftentimes at their wits' end. I think the folks on the over on that side of the wall understand what it's like to deal with people when all they're looking for is for something to go right. He put himself in a position where he, I think, often could have been blamed, could have had frustrating interactions with people, but he did it every single day and was always there ready to help with a smile on his face. When constituents reach out to my office, and I think this is the same for all of you, over the last 2 years, when constituents reach out at their wits' end, needing help because society in one way or another has failed them, and probably time after time government has failed them, they came looking for help. Most of us in our own individual capacity couldn't help unless we called Pat. And Pat was always there, no matter how many people are asking for help. Pat always helped. There are literally thousands of Coloradans who have never met you, Pat, but you helped them in so many ways. Pat loved this work. He loved history. He loved the promise of politics and how it can be used to improve people's lives. He loved his family. He loved baseball. But most of all, he loved helping people. If there is a heaven, I'm sure we can all agree it just got a whole lot more fun. I hope every single day up there, Pat, includes a baseball game by day and maybe a Grateful Dead concert by night. Pat, this world is better because of you. There is an enormous void with you missing from it. And the only possible way we could ever attempt to fill that void, I think, is if we all strive to be just a little bit more like Pat. To study history, and most importantly, to learn from it. To love our families unconditionally, like you obviously did. To care about the well-being of the families of others, even if we had never met them. To go to more baseball games. To listen to more Grateful Dead. And most of all, to help others and not ask for a single thing in return. Thank you for being you, Pat. We are all infinitely better because of you. To Leanne, Jade, and Chris, our hearts are with you. May Pat's memory always be a blessing. Mr. President, I think every single person in this chamber and frankly in this entire building, and then some, has so many stories that they would like to tell about Pat. We're going to make sure that we have time to tell all of those stories and honor Pat for the amazing public servant he has been for this state. If folks would like to say a few words this morning, I think that would be welcomed, but I will also say that I think we should find a time soon where we can dedicate an entire morning to honoring the legacy and work and love that we all have felt from Pat Teagarden's presence in our lives. I think the minority leader would like to say a few words, and I would request, when it's appropriate, for the chimes to be rung. Thank you, Pat. We love you.
The majority leader's moment of personal privilege is recognized. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is becoming routine. I agree with every word that the majority leader just shared. When I served as the chairman of the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee, that was when I really got to know Pat Teagarden. Different parties, same level of wanting, willingness, determination to help. As the majority leader shared, that's who Pat Teagarden was. He impressed me. And one thing that I would ask outside of these chambers to the thousands of people, especially during COVID, who experienced very challenging circumstances with the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, if suddenly those things were resolved because you wrote to one of us here in the legislature, House or Senate, if suddenly hours or within 24 hours a day, someone contacted you and the problem was solved, most of the time that was because Pat Teagarden got involved. Some of you probably know that I'll respond to you in email at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I wake up and go back to work then. So did Pat Teagarden. There were times where I would forward an email regarding an unemployment claim to Pat. Here's another. Didn't have to explain the situation. He knew what it was. And at all hours of the night, he would respond, I'm on it. We'll take care of it. Thank you. Pat Teagarden was a great public servant, and I know that many in our society are critical of government, of bureaucrats. But Pat Teagarden offers one bright, shining example of someone who gave his life to public service and helping people, as the majority leader pointed out. It was painful to get the news from David Oppenheim in the governor's office. It was painful to learn that Pat had passed. And my immediate thought and my response back was that the Hickenlooper and the Polis administration had lost, arguably, its best. So many people will not know, did not know, and will not know how much Pat Teagarden did for them. But I'm blessed to have a little bit of insight to know. And I think all 35 of us here in the Senate do. To the Teagarden family, I cannot even begin to express how heartbroken we are at your loss. We've lost a friend and a great public servant. You've lost a husband and a father, and the world isn't the same without Pat Teagarden. Mr. Majority Leader, thank you for talking before we started this morning and understanding that we will have a moment here to recognize Pat in the future with a memorial, with all the right words. But for now, to the Teagarden family, God bless you and thank you for sharing Pat with all of us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Members, thank the majority leader and the minority leader for your comments. I met Pat when I came here years and years and years ago. And from what you both had to say, you actually crushed my ego just a little bit, because I truly felt that he cared more about me than anyone else in this chamber. And I know that he did that to all of you. And I told him maybe August, September, you know, this will be my last year here. And I'm going to do a resolution to you before I leave. Because you are the most dedicated state employee I have ever found in my 12 years here. And it hurts. It hurts that I didn't get to say my goodbyes. Last week, I sent a text. It's the only text in my 12 years that was not responded to. And then I got the word. You are a dear, dear man. You have a wonderful family. And we on earth lost a great friend. Heaven created a tremendous ally that was there on earth to make the world better for all of us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Pat was possibly the best person in this building. In a building that often runs off of power and greed and ego, and who can get the next headline. As the majority leader said, he was the one for not just the thousands of people he helped, but the hundreds of thousands. We know there's people across Colorado that are protected from wage theft and getting equal pay and get their unemployment benefits because of the work he did. I was on a call with him just 10 days ago, talking about how we will make sure every Coloradan has paid family leave in 2024, and he was so excited. And as the majority leader said, if there's a heaven, it's a much more fun place now. And I believe religion and science exist together. And so I want to share a prayer from a physicist, because what Pat gave this building was always humor and a smile and the best energy. He returned every text. He was always there to greet you with solutions and no ego. So you want a physicist to speak at your funeral. You want the physicist to talk to your grieving family about the conservation of energy, so they will understand that Patrick's energy has not died. You want the physicist to remind you and those grieving about the first law of thermodynamics, that no energy gets created in the universe and none is destroyed. You want everyone to know that all of Patrick's energy, every vibration, every BTU of heat, every wave of energy and particle that he put out remains in this world. You want the physicist to tell you that everyone in the cosmos is receiving that energy still today. And at one point, you'd hope the physicists would come down to those grieving and brokenhearted and remind them that all the photons that ever bounced off of Patrick's face, all the particles whose paths were interrupted by his smile, By the touch of his hair, and hundreds of trillions of particles have raced off like children, their waves forever changed by him. And that those crying and being loved, may the physicists remind you that all those photons that bounced from him are now gathered in you and gathered in your eyes, and that those photons created within his constellation have changed neurons forever. And the physicists will remind everyone of how all of our energy is given off as heat. And there may be a few of us fanning ourselves or feeling a breeze or trying to stay warm. And this will tell you that the warmth that flowed through Patrick in his life is still here, still part of all that we are, even as we mourn and continue the heat of our own lives. Let everyone know that they can measure, that scientists have measured precisely the conservation of energy and found it accurate, verifiable, and consistent across space and time. You can hope and examine with evidence and satisfy themselves that the science is sound. We will be comforted to know that Patrick's energy is still around, according to the law of conservation of energy. But not a bit of Patrick is gone. It's just less orderly. And for someone that put so much energy and hope into this building, may we all take that energy and hope and continue the work on his behalf.
To the family, know that the Senate's thoughts and prayers are with you. As requested, the Senate will observe a moment of silence and the Senate chimes will ring. The Senate will stand in a brief recess to welcome our guests. The Senate will come back to order. Senate Services.
Correctly printed Senate Bill 126, correctly engrossed Senate Bill 002.
Message from the House.
The House has adopted and transmits herewith House Joint Resolution 1006, 007, 008, 009, 010, 011, 012, 013, 014 is printed in House Journal February 4th, 2022.
Introduction and consideration of resolutions, consent calendar. Will the clerk please read the titles to all those listed on the consent calendar?
House Joint Resolution 1006, Representatives Young and Carver, Zenzinger and Gardner, concerning recognition of military veterans and MIA POW Appreciation Day. House Joint Resolution 1007, Representative Herod and Bacon, Senators Coleman and Buckner, concerning recognition of African American veterans. House Joint Resolution 1008, Representatives Ortiz and Holtar, Senators Rodriguez and Moreno, concerning recognition of the contributions of Latina and Latino veterans. House Joint Resolution 1009, Representative Wiseman and Hanks, Senators Donovan and Liston, concerning honoring Colorado veterans on the 77th anniversary of the end of World War II. House Joint Resolution 1010, Representatives Sullivan and Pico, Fields and Rankin, Senators, concerning the recognition of remembrance of military veterans in Colorado who served in the Vietnam War. House Joint Resolution 1011 by Representatives Burnett and Geithner and Senators Kolker and Lundin, concerning honoring Gold Star families. House Joint Resolution 1012, Representatives Snyder and Lynch, Senators Garcia and Heisey, concerning reaffirming Colorado to be the permanent location for the United States Space Command, and in connection therewith urging the Department of Defense to keep the United States Space Command in Colorado. House Joint Resolution 1013, Representatives Esgar and Luck, Senators Garcia and Simpson, concerning the 54th anniversary of the capture of the USS Pueblo by North Korea. House Joint Resolution 1014 by Representatives Ortiz and Sanders, Senators Lee and Liston, concerning the designation of a portion of Colorado State Highway 21 from Kettle Creek to Woodman Road in El Paso County as the SFC Will Lindsay Memorial Highway.
Members will shortly be voting. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, there was a question about this. These are on the consent calendar. Just to clarify, so they are not on your calendar. It's your printed calendar because they were just read across. These are the resolutions that we discussed in the House on Friday. Mr. President, I move all of the resolutions that are on the consent calendar.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of all the resolutions on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes on any of the resolutions? Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I missed the chance for discussion, but I just wanted to say, in reference to House Joint Resolution 22-1013 concerning the USS Pueblo, I have no doubt that the USS Pueblo is no closer to home since you will be at the Pentagon, Mr. President.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I meant has never been closer to home with you being at the Pentagon, Mr. President. We fully expect it, Mr. President.
Mr. Majority Leader. With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, House Joint Resolution 1006 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added on co-sponsors on House Joint Resolution 1006. With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, House Joint Resolution 1007 is passed. Co-sponsors, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on House Joint Resolution 1007. With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, House Joint Resolution 1008 is passed. Co-sponsors, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on House Joint Resolution 1008. With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, House Joint Resolution 1009 is passed. Co-sponsors, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on House Joint Resolution 1009. With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, House Joint Resolution 1010 is passed. Co-sponsors, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on House Joint Resolution 1010. With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, House Joint Resolution 1001 is passed. Co-sponsors, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on House Joint Resolution 1011. The Senate will stand in a brief recess.
Is it one that we already passed?
No.
Or that we already did?
No, it's 1012. Let's just pull it off the consent, and then we'll do the amendment.
Okay, I mean, technically we voted on it. So,
I thought we were doing them one at a time, so I was surprised to hear that.
I'll reconsider it. 10, 12? Pull it off and then reconsider.
Yeah.
That's the name changes that they talked about in House.
Are you sure this wasn't done in the House?
It was.
So rather than them do it, they said it. I didn't know who was running. You're slow to the game.
You want to go ahead and pull it off now, and then we'll reconsider it after we finish the rest of it.
Consent calendars usually to make things move faster. It doesn't always work out that way. I know. Well, but they weren't introduced yet.
I understand it. To do like a special order consent, I guess that's unusual, but I'm trying to understand. All right, there we go. So you have one on an amendment on 12? Right. Did we already do that?
You know it's right here. We did, so I'll pull it off and consider it.
We're going to take 1012 off the consent, and on a regular.
Is this the one Bob was referring to, or no?
No. Different one. I didn't know.
It's hard to know it.
1012. I was gonna say, I'll help you. I was married 45 years. What are we doing?
Try it again, open the vote, and see those on.
I'm able to move into this.
Leave it, or here, cancel that vote and redo it, leave it for the air. So now open it, and then leave it like that.
Okay, I'm in a hurry. I didn't bring it today. Yes, I want to make it from Ted, the new guy, right? Yeah, I know. I'll have it. Okay, because I want to do it where it's convenient. Yes. But I really want to. Finally came. And I need it. So it's no big. I'll go back there and talk to them.
Members, we're going to be on a short delay for the next 5 minutes or so, secondary to the voting machine. The Senate will come back to order. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, things are a little confusing. On top of that, we had a computer glitch happen right when we were trying to navigate some of these other issues. A couple of things. So we took that pause largely because the computer glitched out and wasn't working. I think we found a way to move forward on that. But in the meantime, it was brought to our attention that there is an amendment on one of these resolutions. We already voted on that resolution because we voted on all of them at once. So this is non-traditional, but hopefully everybody is okay with this. But I request, Mr. President, to remove House Resolution 1012 off of consent calendar. We will then, after we're done with the remainder of what we have for the resolutions that are still on consent, we will then reconsider that resolution and entertain that amendment and then vote on that resolution.
The motion
Hopefully
before
that's clear.
The motion before the body is to remove House Joint Resolution 1012 from the consent agenda. At the request, House Bill 1012 will be removed from the consent agenda. Will the clerk please read the title to, with a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, House Bill 1013 is passed. Co-sponsors, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on House Joint Resolution 1013. With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, House Joint Resolution 1014 is passed. Co-sponsors, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on House Joint Resolution 1014. Will the clerk please read the title to House Joint Resolution 1012?
Heisey.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side, I move for the immediate reconsideration, I guess not immediate, but eventual reconsideration is where we are now, of House Joint Resolution 1012.
The motion is for the reconsideration of House Joint Resolution 1012. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have, and the motion is adopted, and reconsideration for House Joint Resolution 1012 is granted. Consideration of resolutions. Will the clerk please read the title to House Joint Resolution 1012?
House Joint Resolution 1012, Representatives Snyder and Lynch, Senators Garcia and Heisey, concerning reaffirming Colorado to be the permanent location for the United States Space Command, and in connection therewith urging the Department of Defense to keep the United States Space Command in Colorado.
Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Joint Resolution 22-1012.
Is there any discussion? Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Amendment L001.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L001?
Amendment L001.
Thank you, Mr. President. My apologies for needing to do this, but this is one of those cases where...
Senator, will you please remove the amendment now in this order, please?
Thank you. I move HJR 1012 L001.
To the amendment, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Basically, what we're doing is cleaning up some names that were not correct in the House when they wrote this resolution. This is a Space Force resolution. We should probably change it to Space from Air. Several of our bases are not correct, so that is what this does, is it makes it correct.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L001 to House Joint Resolution 1012. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, Amendment L001 is adopted. To the resolution, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move HJR 22-1012 as amended.
If there's no further discussion, Are there any no votes? With 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, House Joint Resolution 1012 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on House Joint Resolution 1012. General order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second readings of bill consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes having the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself to the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Rodriguez will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the coat rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of all bills on the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
Senate Bill 017 by Senators Scott and Zenzinger, Representative Bazenaker and Catlin, concerning the determination that a load of fluid milk products hauled by a vehicle is not a divisible load under the vehicle weight limits permitted by law. Senate Bill 015, Senators Holbert, Representative Tatone, concerning representation of Douglas County on the Board of Directors of the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for the adoption of all the bills on the consent calendar, and there are no committee reports.
Is there any discussion on any of the bills on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the bills on general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it and the motion is adopted. The committee will rise and report. Should I call him Mr. Sailor? Department of the Navy, Mr. Captain, Popeye, President Popeye? They are. They are. They are. I don't think they're part of the Marines.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report that it has under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, makes the following recommendations thereof. Senate Bill 017, Senate Bill 015, passed on second reading, and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 017, Senate Bill 015, passed on second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Consideration of governor's appointments. Will the clerk please read all of the appointments on the Community Access Enterprise?
Members of the Community Access Enterprise for terms expiring September 28, 2024, Reverend Ed Eugene Downing of Denver, Colorado, to serve as an individual from a disproportionately impacted community appointed. Sarah Myros of Kansas City, Missouri, to serve as a representative with interests of the automobile industry, including manufacturers and dealers, the electric vehicle charging and fueling business, or owners of motor vehicle fleets, appointed for terms expiring September 28, 2025, Ryan Hurst of Denver, Colorado, to serve in the non-specified seat appointed. Alice Lard of Carbondale, Colorado, to serve as a representative of business or organization that supports electric alternatives to motor vehicles, appointed.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the following appointments to the Community Access Enterprise Board: Reverend Eugene Downing, Sarah Myros, Ryan Hurst, and Alice Laird.
Is there any discussion on any of the nominees? Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I voted no in committee on these members or these appointments, and I'm asking for a no vote here today as well. I just want to refresh everybody's memory on why we have this access, this community access enterprise. It came out of that bill 260 last year, you know, the one that increases fees and taxes on everybody, the bill that is going to make Colorado less affordable. And the reason we have this access enterprise is to bypass the voter will in Proposition 117. So we have to have 4, I believe it is, separate boards. And that's not the only reason why I voted no. That was part of it. But when Mr. Tour came down and did his little spiel on why these people are qualified, he read basically from the statute on the qualifications, and it said, of the 4, at least one of the members must represent disproportionately impacted communities. At least one of the members must represent the interests of the automobile industry, including manufacturers and dealers, the electric vehicle charging and fueling businesses, or owners or operators of motor vehicle fleets, and at least one of the members must represent a business or organization that supports electric alternatives to motor vehicles. And then he stopped. He didn't finish reading the last portion of this statute. What it says is the governor shall make reasonable efforts to extend such applications have been submitted for consideration for the board to consider members that reflect the state's geographic diversity when making appointments, and shall make the initial appointments to be heard no later than October 1st. So, geographic diversity of the state of Colorado. Let me tell you where the 4 people are from. Denver. No shock there. You know, evidently the first floor thinks that you know, everything should be run out of Denver, and the heck with the geographic diversity of the state. Another member lives in Kansas City. Yeah, Kansas City. Now, I don't think Kansas City is part of Colorado unless we annexed western Missouri and eastern Kansas. But to her credit, she said she's going to be moving to Denver. The third member, Ryan Hurst, lives in Denver. Shocking. The last member lives in Carbondale. So we have a 4-member board with 3 people from Denver, hardly representing the geographic diversity of this state. I can't believe that there's nobody qualified that couldn't qualify for this that lives in northeast Colorado, southeast Colorado, southwest Colorado. All 3 have to be from Denver. 3 out of the 4 have to be from Denver. Again, very Denver metro-centric. Again, a war or a battle on rural Colorado. And colleagues, I asked for a no vote on these, to send a message to the governor. Maybe we can send a message to tell them, hey, there is a separation of powers. And you know what? Maybe if you can't follow the letter of the law, at least follow the intent of the law. Let everybody let people on these boards represent all of Colorado. Let them be from all parts of Colorado. As much as the governor wants Denver and Boulder to run this whole state, there are several million people that don't live in Boulder and that represent other parts of the state. So let's send a message to the governor for a change and say, Governor, follow the intent of the law for once. So I'd ask for a no vote, colleagues. Thank you.
Further discussion. Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I do want to thank the senator from Weld County. I was going to say Greeley, but from Weld County for saying that we need to send a message to the governor. So I have a message for the governor as well. And I want to say that the appointments that he has identified are good selections on behalf of the state of Colorado. The reason I say that is for a couple of people that are on here. First of all, the Reverend Dr. Eugene Downing of Denver. He is a pastor. He does live in Denver, but he serves a very diverse church, and he does so much for the community. I can't think of a better representative. And then we talk about, they're all Denver. I'm not quite sure if you're talking about Alice, but she's from Carbondale. Carbondale is not Denver. Carbondale is up there near Glenwood Springs, so that does provide the geographic criteria that you mentioned, so that's good. Ryan, of course, is Denver, and this Sarah is moving to Colorado. So I don't know her exact address, but because of COVID and other things, she doesn't have a formal address that I know of at this time. But my message to the governor is that I like the diversity that you've selected to be on this board. I think that they will do all the right things. That's good for the state of Colorado. That's good for the state of Colorado. So I would say, well done.
Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with the good senator from Adams County that these people are qualified for the job that they have been nominated to. However, the governor has yet to be able to show that he can represent all of Colorado. They meet other qualifications, but it wasn't a pick your friends, pick your industry, people you've been working with for years. It's represent all of Colorado. And so while agreeing that these people do happen to fit the niche that they've been appointed to, except for diversity around the state. And it was for the reasons that the good senator from Adams County articulated that I did vote for all of these folks in committee. They're all fine people. They have the right paper qualifications, except they don't have the right address. So I would encourage a no vote.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. First off, can the good senator that just spoke before me be fined $1 for referring to me from Adams County and not Weld? $5, please. Yeah, I'm sure these people are nice people. They're probably qualified in some regards, but that's not the point. That's not what the law says. It doesn't say they should represent all these groups, and they need to be nice people, and they need to be good people. It says they should represent the state's geographic diversity. And so it's nothing personal against them. Like I said, I'm sure they're nice people, but let's have the governor follow what we intended him to do. So I'd ask for a no vote.
Senator Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. President. And strange, but I want to speak in support of one candidate. I'll vote no on the on the overall appointments because of geographic dispersity. But my Carbondale friend Alice Laird, certainly not my party, and we don't agree with each other on many things, but a good representative of my community in Western Colorado on these issues. So, my support would be for two, but not all of these candidates. And so perhaps what we need to do is reconsider the geographic mix, but not discard all of the candidates. Thank you.
Senator Rankin.
Mr. President, I ask that we sever the Reverend Downing and Alice Laird of Carbondale from the vote. Is that the right motion?
So we could follow this. Members, this is how we'll proceed. First, we will take a vote on the remaining appointments where there is consensus, and then we will take a separate vote for those that have been requested to be severed. Is there further discussion? Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to share the perspective of my friend from Weld County, Greeley, and others who have spoken from our caucus. This is not the first time we've been here on this topic. My good friend from Montrose has raised objection. I think we had a rather tense moment here on the last or next to last day of the session recently, and he had pointed out on some agricultural appointments that the geographic diversity of the state was not being represented. I also want to say thank you to the governor's office, because I think my good friend, who also does not live in Parker, raised a similar objection about an appointment to a governor's appointment that came through the Senate Health and Human Services Committee. And then later that summer, I think the governor's office actually worked to remove one of those appointees and replace him or her with someone who did fit the statutory requirements. So this isn't the first time we've been here. And I also want to honor the perspective shared by our good friend from Arapahoe County, the assistant majority leader. The individuals appointed, we're not opposed to them, but law has been passed, statute has been put on the books that requires the governor to consider the geographic diversity of our state. And for those who live down in southwest Colorado or southeast Colorado, that's not where I live. They deserve to have representation on these various boards and commissions that the legislature creates. And that isn't being done with these appointments. So, Mr. President, I appreciate severing so that we might vote differently on one, but this is, again, not a reflection on the individuals who have been nominated, who have been appointed, would be with our confirmation, but an appeal to the governor's office. We represent diverse Colorado. There's 35 senators here, and with all 35 of us included, we represent every person who lives in this state and every community. There are 35 Senate districts, and they cover all four corners of the state. I would be grateful to have people who I don't represent in Douglas County considered because they live further away from the Denver metro area. That's what we should be doing. That's who we should be confirming. And again, not a reflection on those individuals, but to the governor's office, please take those things into consideration when you send us these appointments, so that we don't have to have these conversations. Respect geographic diversity. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. At the federal level, there is a balance that is struck in the legislative chambers to make sure that the geographical diversity of our country is represented. It's different. The United States Senate is elected 2 senators from each state. Small states have the same authority in many ways in that chamber as do large states with large populations. In its wisdom, the United States Supreme Court has said that all legislative chambers, House and Senate across the country, should be represented one person, one vote. And so the reality is, what happens in these legislative chambers is the concentration of the population becomes more and more and more powerful. The House, like the United States Congress, is represented based on approximately 750,000 people per seat, and greater power concentrates based on the population in that particular chamber. The same thing can happen in legislative chambers. The House is based on population, and the Senate is also based on population. So the power concentrates increasingly in the urban corridors of the state. So as a check against that, no formal reality exists. So it becomes an informal process. Exactly what's happening here. A give and take. And I will acknowledge the governor's office has been attentive in the past when concerns over an absence of representation for the rural aspects of this state are not apparent. They've attended to and begun to hear more clearly the need that all the corners of this state in all its geographical diversity be represented. We find ourselves once again returning to that conversation. So in this informal process where there isn't a structure that creates an equal representation for our rural communities or an equal authority, power, if you will, for our rural countries or rural communities, we have to do it in an informal way, and that's what we're asking for here. An equal representation of all the diversity in its geographical beauty of the state of Colorado. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I appreciate it. And You know, we probably should have had this conversation last week on February the 2nd, Groundhog Day. This is something that I've been concerned about for some time, and I think that we have an obligation to make sure that these boards and commissions represent geographic and ethnic diversity. I think that's important. It's concerning to me, and I agree. I'm not going to claim that the qualifications of these people are not qualified. They absolutely are. But I would hate to think that there is no one from Pueblo County or Southern Colorado or the San Luis Valley or Northeast Colorado that is not qualified to serve on one of these boards. And I'm going to go back to an old friend of mine, former Representative J. Paul Brown. His dad, Casey, I think had one of the greatest statements in the world. If you find 10 people in a room and they all think the same, your goal is to figure out which one is doing the thinking. So I think these boards and commissions need to have that diversity of thinking so we can be as good as we can be. We will be as good as we should be. I came down earlier to ask that the vote be severed. The good senator from Carbondale took care of that, but I just want to give you country boy philosophy on how we should be running this chamber. Thank you.
Having no further discussion, the motion is the confirmation of Sarah Monroe to the governor's board's appointments. Are there any no votes? Senators Lundin, Simpson, Sonnenberg, Gardner, Kirkmeyer, Woodward, Rankin, Scott, Liston, Quorum, Heisey, Smallwood, Cook, the minority leader. With 20 ayes, 14 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, she is confirmed. Will the clerk please add Senator Story to the roll call? The motion is for the confirmation of Ryan Hurst to the governor's appointments. Are there any no votes? Senators Simpson, Lundin, Sonnenberg, Kirkmeyer, Cook, Scott, Rankin, Smallwood, Heisey, Gardner, Liston, Quorum, Woodward, the minority leader. With a vote of 20 ayes, 14 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Ryan Hurst is confirmed. The motion is for the confirmation of Reverend Eugene Dowling for the governor's appointments for Community Access Enterprise. Are there any no votes? Senators Cook, Liston, Sonnenberg, Scott, Gardner, with a vote of 29 ayes, 5 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Reverend Eugene Downing is confirmed. The motion is for the confirmation of Alice Laird to the governor's Community Access Enterprise appointment. Are there any no votes? Senators Cook, Scott, Sonnenberg, with a vote of 31 ayes, 3 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Alice Laird is confirmed. Announcements. I think that's... Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not that type of moment. The Olympics are upon us, news flash, everyone. But USA's first medal was a silver won by Julia Moreno, and she is a former student of mine. She is actually not a Colorado kid, but we'll celebrate her nonetheless because I got to try to teach her Macbeth, which she hated with a passion. She was not too keen on the symbology of the queen, but she sure knows how to kick butt on the hill. So congratulations to Julia Moreno for getting silver in the Olympics and the first medal for USA. Stay tuned. I have 8 other former students who are competing in the Olympics, and we'll probably use this opportunity to brag about all of them. Go USA.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members. The good senator from Longmont and I want to announce we are doing a drive for the next 2 weeks. So we're going to be talking about these products a lot. There is a lack of access to period products and diapers, which can cause some serious health problems for those that don't have access to basic hygiene. It can cause health issues, it can cause infection, and oftentimes these are the least donated items to places that folks go for food and clothing and access to goods they need. And so we're asking that everyone bring period products and diapers, both adult and children, down for the next 2 weeks. We are competing with the House, so let's make sure that we have a good standing in the Senate for collecting these essential needs.
Senator Hawkins Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Think how good you will feel going to your drugstore, your grocery store, and picking these up for women and families in need. Colleagues, thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. After conferring with the majority and minority leader, I request to be excused Friday, February 18th.
Senator Coleman will be marked excused for February 18th, as requested. Mr. Majority Leader. Senator Gonzalez. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, tomorrow we had a bill scheduled on the calendar for Senate State and Veterans and Military Affairs, Senate Bill 73. We will be laying that bill over, so for anyone who is following along and wanted to testify regarding that bill tomorrow, it will be laid over on the calendar. So I just wanted to make folks aware. Thank you.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we do not have any bills to read across today. but you're welcome to still hang out if you'd like. Mr. President, I move that the Senate adjourn until 9 a.m. Tuesday, February 8th, 2022.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes having the motion is adopted. The Senate will stand in adjournment until 0900 hours on Tuesday, February 8th, 2022.